Hello students, you are welcome in the Economic IES YouTube channel. Presently, I am going to discuss how you can tackle the analytical questions from GS Economy in Civil Service Pre and Means Advanced Level Analysis. This video is only for those students who are really serious for civil service, because you can't achieve this civil service target or selection without any strategy, and you have to equally focus on both substandard questions and quality questions. Only those students can qualify this preliminary who have the broad knowledge of all general study papers as well as their optional. Somewhere you will read that only 10th standard knowledge is sufficient, generalization is sufficient, but if you go through the questions level, it may be pre, mains, etc., or interview or essay level paper also, you will find some extent deep knowledge you are needed. By keeping in view all these conditions and previous year results of the students and their difficulties in Indian economy, I start this latest, after a lot of thinking, series of our videos which can help you to understand the technicalities of GS economy, how you can tackle the technical, analytical, theoretical based, principle based questions in your pre-mains interview board as well as in your essay paper. Now come, as my previous video I have discussed with you demand side factor determining the growth rate of our GDP. Today I will discuss the supply side factor, how they are going to determine the GDP growth rate in recent and previous year. Now come on the table and take it very easily. I would like to pursue this topic very simply so that you can understand. Demand means total demand of the society. Supply means total output of the economy. When we think about the total output, as you know, the total output or production in our economy contributed by the different sector of the economy, you can classify them: agriculture and allied sector number 1, industry number 2nd, service sector number 3rd. When we are talking about service sector, it includes all kinds of service like trade and services. In trade, I will discuss how the import of capital goods enhancing the productivity and production and overall supply in our economy. In case of agriculture and allied sector, in case of agriculture exclusively, and if I talk about industry and exclusively manufacturing industries, service sector, capital good industries, etc., then you can definitely realize how the supply side economy is going to determine the growth rate of our economy. Because without any data, you can't analyze your answer. That's why I am using here certain tables which are taken from the economic survey. They are the authentic data, Government of India data. There should be no any confusion regarding these data. I would like to explain one by one. If you think the share of different sector of the economy in our GDP, after understanding the share of different sector of the economy, namely agriculture and allied sector, industry, services sector. These three sectors, you can say primary, secondary and tertiary sector of the economy, which you can easily understand in our nominal GDP. And if you know the investment pattern of this sector, then definitely you can realize that what kinds of growth rate these sector are contributing in different financial year in our economy. What is the role of credit or bank loan in the development of this sector? What kinds of structural reforms are taking place under this sector? Then you can easily understand how much they are contributing in our overall GDP growth rate. I would like to explain one by one. Think about agriculture and allied sector. In our total nominal GDP, say 100% in the H1, means half of the financial year 2024-25, April, May, June, July, August, September. Again I say April, May, June, July, August, September, that is the half of the financial year 2024-25. The share of agriculture allied sector in total our nominal GDP was 14%, industrial sector was 24.5%, service sector was 52.6%. What does it mean? Here the service sector have the major contributor, but if you go through these things, the growth rate contribution means out of total GDA growth rate, what is the role of primary sector, or you can see agriculture and allied sector in the financial year 2024-25 H1, 2.7% growth rate was of this sector, 6.1% growth rate was of industrial sector, because industrial sector growth rate majorly contributed by the manufacturing sector other than industries. And it's, if you see here, manufacturing sector contributing 12.7% out of 24.7% of nominal GDP. And here you can see the growth contribution of industrial sector, or you can say exclusively industrial sector growth rate was 6.1%. Manufacturing sector growth rate was 4.8%, which is contributing in our industrial growth rate, whereas the service sector growth rate was 7.0% during the half of the financial year 2024-25. What does it mean? This is their overall GDP contribution, nominal GDP contribution. And this is overall contribution in growth rate of our GDA when you derive or exclude the value of intermediaries groups from the GDP or nominal GDP, you can derive the nominal gross value added. And because this is at basic price means real GDA, then you have to deduct this intermediaries values of goods from real GDP during this financial year. And you can understand now, out of total supply chain or out of total aggregate supply, agriculture contributing 14%, industry contributing 24.5%, and service sector contributing 52.6%. Overall growth rate, they are all over contributing 6.2% during the half of this year. Now think, what are the fundamental causes of this growth contribution? Actually, it was because of government strategy. I recall your knowledge. This present government since beginning focus on which one? This is always focus on capital expenditure. Huge capital expenditure by developing basic infrastructure. It may be for agriculture or rural areas. It may be for industrial sector or service sector. That kinds of infrastructure development motivating the private sector investment, that is known as crowding in effect. This huge investment diversifying the different sector of the economy. If I recall your knowledge regarding agriculture and allied sector, during recent year 2026, you can see the same data. I also analyzed that one. Similarly, suppose all the data, once you understand one year, then you can analyze easily other years also growth rate and supplied side effect in our total GDP growth rate. Allied sector, specifically fisheries, animal rearing, they are contributing during present and last year more than agriculture sector in itself. Food grain production, total agriculture output, means allied sector contribution is increasing because of more investment in this sector. As you can see, our bank credit for non-food sector, specifically that is industry, that is service sector, increased 10.2% during the quarter first of 2026. If you consider H1 2026, where agriculture allied sector contribution in nominal GDP was 13.2%, industrial contribution 24.3%, manufacturing sector contribution 13%, service sector 53.6%. Other side, bank credit also increasing for this sector. Second point, which you have to understand, this bank credit, one side motivating the private investment, other side it also increasing the growth rate of capital good industries. You know, you can classify all industries in two categories: consumable good industries, capital good industries. If the growth rate of consumable good industry are increasing, that capital goods will further produce the goods, means they will further enhance the growth rate of industrial sector. As you can see, it was during H1 2026, industrial sector growth rate was 7%, manufacturing sector 8.4%. If industrial sector growth rate, because of more growth rate of capital good industry and capital goods import also increasing during the same period, as you can see, I plot the data for H1 2025, H1 2026, and here quarter 1 2026, quarter 2 2026, quarter 3 2026, year on year based growth rate during 2016 to 2020. What they show, that our industrial index of industrial production capital goods increased by 9.8% during quarter first of 2026 financial year, 5.6% quarter 2 of 2026 financial year, and 6.2% during the quarter 3 of 2000 financial year, whereas it was very low during the period of 2016 to 20, only 0.2% per year. Again, capital good import also increasing in India 6.6% Q 2026, 9.2% Q2 2026, 13.4% Q3 financial year 2026, and its growth rate was 7.1% per year during 2016 to 2020. This is the appreciable growth rate of what? Import of capital. Because of that kinds of huge investment in our industries, capital good industries, our productivity of the economy, capacity utilization of the industries all over the economy also increased from 74% to 74.8% and 72.9% during 2016 to 2020 year by year. And this the consistent improvement which you can see in quarter 2 of the financial year 2026, that our efficiency or our capacity utilization increased up to 74.8% in comparison to 70.2.9%. If capacity utilization is consistently increasing, supply of the goods in different sector of the economy is increasing supply automatically with increasing domestic demand, as I discussed with you in my previous lecture, increase the growth rate of total GDP which you can see here very easily. If this is say aggregate supply, this is say aggregate demand, this is aggregate supply and aggregate demand, and this is say growth rate of the economy. Growth rate, if aggregate demand is increased, aggregate supply is increased. Priorly growth rate was OG, but now the growth rate was OG dash. As you can see, in the current last financial year 2025-26, actual GDP growth rate was 7.7%. Our prediction was 7.2%. But because of Government of India's strategy of demand and supply side management, it reached from prediction of 7.2 to actually 7.7%. What is the factor? One side our aggregate supply increase, other side our aggregate demand increase. Our aggregate supply increase because of increasing credit of the commercial bank to different sector. It may be agriculture, non-agriculture sector, or non-food sector. Second point, increasing investment on behalf of government. As I discussed with you, gross capital formation rate in my previous lecture also increasing. It means if investment increasing, output contribution is increasing, then definitely the growth rate of the economy is increasing. As you can see, in the financial year 2025 growth rate was only 6.4%, but in the financial year 2025-26 it was 7.7%. As you can see, 7.7% higher than 6.4% despite fragile international or world economy due to war, due to Hormuz Strait problem and other factors of the economy. Global economy facing high inflation, high unemployment rate, but in case of India, we are assuming or we are achieving high growth rate with low inflation, high employment growth rate, low poverty ratio, low unemployment rate. What is this? It is only because of strategy of the government of India, which you can see by these kinds of data. If I analyze in case of financial year 2026, fast advance estimate, agriculture assumed to be contribute 15.2%, industry assumed to be contributed 24.3%, manufacturing 12.8%, service sector assumed to be contribute 51.1%, and as you can see, the growth rate of these sectors for the financial year first advance estimate expected to be how much? In case of agriculture 3%, industry 6.2%, manufacturing industry 7%, service sector 7.3%, and actual assumed growth rate was 7.3. Actually it was 7.3. Why? It is because of Government of India development strategy. Student, if you understand in this way, this table will help factual questions also. Sometimes they ask, in financial year 2025-26, what is the contribution of industry, agriculture and allied, and service sector? In that case, you memorize these data: 15.2, 24.3, 51.1. This is the factual questions contributing. They also ask the growth rate in a different financial year. Agriculture is to be 3.1%. Actually, it was 3.4. Actual data. Industry 6.2 and service sector 9.1, 7.3. Actually, it was 7.7. Because of which one? Because of Government of India demand and supply factor. Now you understand how the demand and supply overall determine the growth rate. If you are till now unable to understand effect of demand and supply, you can see a larger diagram so that you can understand the demand and supply effect on growth rate and how we can achieve the further higher growth rate as our government Prime Minister focus on which one? External factor. As I previously discussed with you, 21.1% of our GDP growth rate, of our GDP output or national income output contributed by the export. By the, or you can say our out of national income 100%, 21% depends on other country. Recently they signed the agreement with Australia in the recent visit. Priorly they signed the different countries free trade agreement on trade with America. All these kinds of strategy by enhancing the 21% of our national income, by increasing export, by increasing more capital goods import, further enhance the growth rate, and in this way, under this fragile, unstable global economic scenario, our growth rate always will be higher, and that will boost up the quality of life in our economy and achieve the target of developed India by 2047. You can analyze in this. Thank you student for today. I will again discuss with you current topic, technical topic, analytical topic, which will definitely enhance your knowledge if you go through these videos multiple times. Thank you student.